study of religion, scripture and philosophy, when we say knowledge, I personally think that's something very deep and very internal. It's not learning as about things, it's having this kind of reawakening or real education of the deepest part of one's soul, which is a necessary thing. We'll talk about why that's necessary for humankind at the moment. So these two things, these are very beautifully put together in the words of the ancients, in terms of our faith traditions. It shows that they were just naturally thinking this way, even though at the time that most of our religious traditions were beginning, there was not scientific development like we have today by any means, but they looked, for example, this is the Jewish tradition here from the Psalms, the heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. This is God's work. It's like you just have to go out at night and see the stars, and there are not many places in Britain you can do that, but in some places you can see a starry night, right? Also, in Islamic tradition, you have in the Quran, verily, in the alternation of the night and day, and in all that Allah has created, in the heavens and the earth, are signs for those who fear Him. Fear in a kind of religious sense of being in awe, and putting yourself in a respectful position in front of the Creator. So it's going to teach you in that way. You want to know about it? There it is, right? This kind of feeling. And it's very, in a way, like simple but profound, right? Here in Romans, in the New Testament, in the kind of Christian tradition, we have St. Paul writing, right? It's amazing that, here's a person with this kind of Roman background. Since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature, they've been clearly seen in the things that have been made. He says we're kind of without excuse. We shouldn't, wonder about these things because it's really visible. It's there if you look, if your eyes are open, right? So we were talking about that earlier. And in the Bhagavad Gita from the Hindu tradition, all this visible universe comes from my invisible being. Yeah, very clear statement, isn't it? Everything you see, and this progression from invisible to visible. Of course, to us it's invisible, but there's a reality there which is not visible, it's more internal. We'll talk about that later. So that is a kind of progression of anything that's created. When you create something, right? What do you like making? I'm going to pick on you. Oh, he's picking on me. How nice. What do you like to create? Something you like to create?
What I like to create?
Babies.
Not babies, no.
I was expecting them to say that.
I want to create a better environment to feel everybody welcome.
Right. Okay. So that you'll be doing certain things to do that, right?
Yeah.
But does it just happen, or does it start with an idea?
Sometimes just happen because it comes natural. Sometimes, but sometimes you need to be prepared.
Even if you're cooking, baby.
Yeah.
Starting
That's a very interesting line to pursue. For you, it's so natural. It's almost like the thinking and the doing are. You can't really separate, and that's a person who's really a master at anything. You'll just, pick up your guitar and you just play, and you think, oh, I'm so envious of that person, right? How can they do that, right? I have a friend in Holland. He's an amazing piano player, and sometimes on evenings like we'll have tonight, and people will say to him, I want to sing this song. Do you know this song? They say, no, I don't know it, but don't worry. You just play and I'll accompany you. Because that gap between the kind of thinking and doing is now so tight. But still, I reckon, if you tease it out, there's a thinking and then there's a doing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Of course.
There's that. So there's that invisible internal. Yes?
I just want to say to people here who are not familiar with it, the symbol on the left as we're looking at it, it says Om, It's a Sanskrit word Om, which is used in modern
Yeah.
Hinduism as well, in Hindi, in Buddhism. We had Om this morning. And Om is said to be the sound that was made by the universe when the universe was created. And by extension, it is both God and God's creation.
Very good.
Thank you for that.
Personal.
Yes, so that's encapsulated in that. Or
Yeah, in that.
Like in
three aspects are in there.
Christianity,
Yes.
you know, it says there was a word, right?
Yes.
And the word was God. So Om is that word. Right?
Yes.
In every faith you will find. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, and you have this
The word
kind
in
of
the beginning.
poetic idea of the music of the spheres, like there's some kind of resonance there, which is like a vibration or a kind of, which is what sound is.
No more talking now.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful ideas. Here's one more from, this time it's from Sikhism. As fragrance dwells in a flower, and reflection in a mirror, so God dwells inside everything. Seek Him, therefore, in your heart. And from Buddhism, Buddha manifests his body in immense size to cover all the sky. He also manifests himself in the infinitesimals of nature.
It's a big word.
No, but interest in Buddhism, anyway.
She has Buddhist.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because, as I said, Buddhists consider they're non-theistic. They don't believe in God. But here's the Buddha being used, this idea of Buddha, being used for exactly the same way as God in those other traditions.
Yes.
It's interesting, isn't it? So we shouldn't let language get in the way or concepts get in the way. But that's, and you'll find this in Christianity, that there's a kind of specific person, Jesus, but there's also a kind of Christ, which is like an ideal for humankind, and it's there in the mind of God in the beginning. Leads some people to think, Christ was there from the very beginning in the way that he was but no, it's actually talking about some kind of godly perfection, which is there in the mind of God, before creation. So there's an ideal and a mind element which is then made real. So it's always thinking and doing, right? And thinking has some aspect of purpose, as we'll see. And we can recognize this in certain aspects of human creativity, right? Now, there are more specific aspects, but I like particularly our sister's real kind of expansion of creativity to doing something, for others and for peacemaking. Because often when you ask people, are you a creative person? They will say, no,
I don't know how to do anything.
I can't paint, I can't sculpt, I can't do these things. But no, creativity is such a broad, definition. Right? So even being a good listener and counselor to somebody, or enjoying mathematics or something, and trying to solve problems. So all kinds of things are using our creative nature, which is God-given. And this is a simple kind of principle of resemblance represented here, which is used in philosophies and religious traditions to say, we can tell the work of an artist. People can recognize the hand of Michelangelo in this, and they recognize Renoir in this other style. It's like he couldn't paint any other way, because this was him expressing himself. Right? And therefore always you'll be able to see, that's a Renoir, or that's a Michelangelo. Of course people can deliberately paint in different ways, but still something, like handwriting, it kind of gives away, this person. And everybody's handwriting is unique, but yet it includes or comes out of something very internal and invisible in themselves. So, we look at the world, we can tell something about the creator of the world, just as we look at the paintings, we can tell something, not everything, we can tell something about the artist. This kind of idea helps us. So, in the next little section, what I want to do is to look at some fundamental aspects which are there for all to see, right? They're all there in the created world. Where do they come from? If we have this kind of idea of a creator, this is where the origin is. It's origin of everything that we see. If it has certain characteristics which are everywhere, it's reasonable to think that those characteristics belong to the creator, right? So this is the logic, and it's very sound logic. So in the world, you will find everything exists in certain, I'm going to talk about two main complementary pairs. Right? The first is, here you might see it in terms of male and female. Right? Everything, human beings, animals. I like this picture. Right? This is the wife's had a hard day hunting. Right? Sends out to work. It's a bit like me. Right? I said my wife had to work. But here he is. The husband is just a little bit dozing, but he's keeping a watchful eye, over his exhausted wife there. Right? So it's very touching, isn't it? They're working together in this way. They're a unit, really, and they're living for each other in this respect. And we love it in dancing and in ballet. People, they really applaud when the prima ballerina comes on, and she does have, she's the most expert of the group, and she can do the, what's required, applauding this beautiful dance. And then the man comes on, right? And he does kind of different things. He can leap about, and he can, a little more energetic maybe, but not, and certain grace, but maybe not quite the grace of the woman, but, and people love that too, the leading male dancer. But when do they applaud most? It's when the two together, right? They come on, they do their, pas de deux, where they do their dance together, because there's a certain magic there, which is not there if there's just one. There's some other dimension there. And you know how it is? The man is actually, almost kind of retiring into the background, and he's lifting his female partner dance up, she's and everybody's thinking, oh, she's flying, she's flying, amazing. And of course, he's doing this behind. He's working hard to do this, but it looks so effortless and so beautiful. You think, oh, she's flying. So, with your husbands, if you have one, you can fly. Okay, this is the lesson for us. So, and in the plant world, there are male and female, stamen and pistil. Even sometimes in the same flower. That doesn't disqualify it. It's still a principle, right? Yes. There's the male and female aspects, and in nature you get all kinds of fascinating, aspects of symbiosis. You get, special moths which are adapted for this particular plant, and they kind of fertilize it, and they lay their eggs, and then the grub will eat one of the seeds which comes as a result of the fertilization. All this kind of thing. It's fascinating. It means there's a working together, there's an interdependence, even among separate things. Right? And those two lions, they're separate. Right? They could go off and do their own things. But something in a deeper part of the lion being and mind is saying, no, we are together instinctively. For the animals, human beings have to be a little more conscious about some of these things. Even, why a picture of lightning?
Because with the clouds.
Because that kind of electric spark takes plus and minus, right?
Yes.
It takes two complementary aspects, and here we run into a problem of language. Minus is not negative, right? It's it's just different, positive and negative. This generates the flow of electricity and the crack of electricity. Always, this huge positive charge is looking for somewhere to discharge and to find the place. So this is a pair system, and as I've explained, it's there in everything. Even in minerals, we think of as kind of inanimate, but there's a positive and negative system. When you go down to the molecule, positive charge, negative charge. When you go to the even below that,
Lines and lines.
I'm getting the
I
science.
draws-
Science and
I
charts,
draws-
right? Yeah, so you see I'm not a scientist, right, already, but, you know, it's there, and when you break down, when, you know, scientists break down these little units, which are way too small to see, then you find that when you split one, it goes into two, right?
Yeah.
And even on the subatomic level, you know, you see that it's like a direction of spin. One spins clockwise and one spins anti-clockwise. Right? And these combine together to make something greater. So there is this polarity, or this complementary pairs, male and female. We call them the unification principle, even though this is not normally thought of as male and female, right? But it's on a much lower, kind of more fundamental level. And that's an interesting, if you like, little bit of revelation, right, to think that way. So there's also a more fundamental pair system when we look at everything that's created. Human beings have, you know, our inner mind and heart. We might use the word spirit, or we might use the word soul. We might say something about that invisible nature which gives us personality and life, and we have a body which is animated by that, but also reflects the inner state and the inner nature and the inner character. So, you know, the person who's not feeling very happy today is probably walking a bit kind of hunched over and miserable. You know? And you can tell, you know, what's wrong with you today? The first person who's very confident and happy, you know, they're showing it in their body because of the interaction between these things. So, you know, you train yourself, you can start to be very sensitive to people's you know, inner state, if you like, by observation, because, you know, you can't really know a person's mind, but because of the working between mind and body, we can tell certain things. In animals, this, of course, is much more instinctive, but it's there, right? And in plants, also, this kind of area of research, really, is there's some kind of directive nature inside, even plants. They will do certain things a certain way because they are, in a way, programmed to do that. And it's in their nature. It's very tied up with their physical cells and body, but there's still some kind of inner aspect to the external structure. And minerals likewise, and when you get down onto the atomic level, you have an inherent directive nature there, which makes things do what they do in the way that they do, right? Mm-hmm. So that is there. As you go down the kind of hierarchy, if you like, then yes, it becomes more fundamental, more simplified, but it's there. Because it's there, it means that, you know, it must come from somewhere. So if this God that we're talking about is the origin, then these things have their origin in that kind of realm of mind and purpose and invisible realm, and they're manifested physically. Everybody kind of follow my thinking where we're going with this? Yeah. Actually, it sounds again simple or fundamental, but it actually underlies so many kind of aspects of good kind of creativity and good decision making and good relationships and good, you know, and eventually on the big scale we're talking about peace, right? So it's actually related to this, and understanding these concepts is important.
Example of plant, mind and body, like bulbs, like daffodils and all that. You can keep the, you know, bulb in the ground, but they know exactly
When to come out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nobody tells them.
That's right.
I don't know what that is, but it's springtime. They start coming out.
It's
and
inherent directive nature.
something inside them.
Also turning towards sunlight.
Of course you can say, you know, oh, it's because of temperature. But anyway, you know, what's the mechanism that responds to that temperature?
When you got a month in February, March time, you start seeing them.
Exactly. So
Some gravity, I don't know what.
that's why, you know, a lot of very interesting religious traditions are very much in touch with nature, like American Native, you know, Native American tradition. They're very, very beautiful and very open to this, really relating to nature as if it's like a brother or sister or a parent or, you know, really part of the family. So here, the pair system that we've been looking at, as you see, there's always pairs in the example which I give, we call these existing in a kind of subject-object relationship. So the subject is the kind of initiating force, and the object is a kind of responding partner to that. So they cooperate and work together. This actually is, of course, a dynamic system. So in some cases, one half may be the subject, but it might swap roles. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's very obviously the case in human beings. We see that all the time, right? In a relationship between any two people, when you're having a conversation, the person who is speaking is like the subject, right? And the person who is responding or listening is in the object position, right? But you have to be kind of centering on some kind of common idea, and as we'll see, some kind of common purpose. You want to get somewhere through your relating with each other. It's not always the case when people talk, right? Because sometimes, have you ever had the experience, or is it just me? I don't know. But you're talking with somebody and you feel they're not listening. They're really not interested in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Often what that kind of person is doing, they're thinking up what is the next thing that they're going to say, right? So their mind is like, I'm the subject. We know any situation, my opinion is more important. This becomes a problem. So it looks like a conversation, but when you actually go away from it, you think, what? Where did we get with that conversation? But conversely, I'm sure you more commonly experience, you're talking with somebody, they're really listening, they respond with something that's really based and even shaped and altered by what you said, right? And then they give it back to you, and you can kind of take it a little bit further. And through that conversation, maybe some great idea comes out at the end, right? A great plan emerges. And then you think, was that you, Patricia, that thought of that? No, I thought it was you said. No. Somehow it came, right? It popped out of the air that way. So that's kind of when it's working well. When you go deeper into unification philosophy, it calls this kind of quality subject consciousness and this object consciousness. We need to develop those, right, for success in life and relationships and marriage and family and society, Very fascinating, actually. Without that knowledge, we can keep on repeating the same mistakes, right? Demanding, thumping the table when you're in a negotiation because you only want your view, because you have the best view, right? And everybody should listen. Right? It's not going to get anywhere, right? And it's not like giving away to the other, because maybe through your good giving and responding, through this good relationship, a better idea comes out, right? It's better than I could have thought, it's better than you could have thought, right? And it satisfies everybody. Wow, right? Okay, so, we use this kind of dynamic in all kind of areas of human achievement, right? This guy looks like he's just climbed a mountain, doesn't he, right? Who's climbed a mountain here? Significant mountain. Yeah. Yes, that's wonderful. What's your feeling when you get to the top?
Achieve something.
You've achieved it.
Yeah, really.
Like this guy. Whoa! Yeah, even if it's exhausting, you still feel exhilarated, right?
That's right.
Because you are setting yourself this target, and your mind, propelled your body to do it. Right? Mind was subject, body was the object in that case, right? And then you get the reward at the end. That's why people do it, right? All aspects of our life involve this. Whether you're in business or work or education, here it involves these kind of dynamics. Here, obviously, teacher is in a subject role, but sometimes teachers have to listen, right? They can learn from their students. It's not the kind of standard or regular position, but you have to be open to that, right? And indeed, it can be, an amazing lesson, as a teacher, if you listen and you hear what children are saying, even the questions they ask, But there's a dynamic here. Likewise, when I was at university, I was very well aware that we had great lecturers, but there were some classmates who just thought, oh, this person doesn't know anything. In other words, I know more than this person. This kind of mind. And they really didn't listen when they were in the lectures. Right? Or they felt, I can just skip it, I go and get a coffee or something. How stupid. That was my feeling. How stupid. Right? Maybe this person is, doesn't know everything, but you can learn from this person, given their experience. So put yourself in that kind of humble position. Don't be arrogant. Don't think nobody can teach me anything. I'll just go and read the book. No. We kind of losing this a little bit, I think, in some areas of our life, and I see it quite often. So, there's more deference, especially in the Orient, towards the role of a teacher, and in Asia, towards the role of a teacher. That's very sensible, actually, It doesn't mean a kind of blind obedience and you just have to do it out of some kind of, because that's what you have to do. No, it's actually this kind of inner respect, which then means you can learn more. Right? Okay, so the pair system centers on a higher purpose. For the kind of give and take that goes on in a human body, like you have the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous systems, these kind of things, you have breathing in and out, right? Weren't we doing that this morning?
Yes.
Right? All this? Right? Breathing in and out, right? What's the purpose of this? To maintain life. That means, the breathing in and breathing out, they work together with the purpose. They both have the same purpose, and that's to maintain life.
That's right.
So there's a common purpose. Our common purpose, or the common purpose between every subject-object relationship, catch this, the common purpose comes not from the subject and object themselves. It comes from the one who created them. Right? The purpose comes from the Creator. Right? That's your thinking again. When you're thinking of a purpose. Right? I want to make a lovely cake to make my guest happy. Right? So I'm thinking that way. Right? And I'm working with the ingredients and all the kind of reading the recipe and doing this because that give and take is for the same purpose, to make something that will bring happiness. This kind of idea, it's there. There has to be, for this pair system to work, a common purpose. And that common purpose it's an invisible thing, right? It comes from somewhere, right? So, in the religious world, we call that God, but even then we don't always understand it, right? So here, the pair system we identified has a higher purpose. If we start with God in this way, and you can call that like a higher purpose or a common purpose, it's then that... I said I wouldn't wander because Robin asked me, do you wander about? This morning. David, do you wander about?
Yeah, I like going around these circles.
What a strange question. I can just, you'll see me some days, just in the street, just kind of wander about. So I should have an answer. But anyway, then I realized, he's talking about the camera, right? He means don't wander off camera. Right? Okay. I see. Okay, yeah. Well, I thought I didn't wander about, but so I have to use this pointer. Right? Ooh, follow the dot, right? If you were a cat, you'd be going wild. Right? They chase these things.
They try to catch.
So that means origin, we're calling God. Everybody happy with that? We're calling God? Right? There's a common purpose here. And if you don't like the word God, I say to people, well, think of higher purpose or some kind of common purpose, some kind of origin. And where does the subject and object come from? From this origin, right? They have a common purpose, which is the purpose of Creator for creating these things. And if they center, we say center is a kind of spiritual word, really. If they center on this common purpose, then they'll have a relationship which is fulfilling the purpose for which they were created. This is, the answer, contained within. For, what is the purpose of life? I think an age-old question. It's there. So, actually, subject comes from God, object comes from God. Man, woman, male, female. mind, body. These all have their common origin, and when they center on that common purpose, then they can work together to create something greater. That's the purpose of these give and take relationships, or give and receive relationships between subject and object partners. It's give and take action, and in a way, each is living for the other. I'm existing for you, I'm existing for you. Right? And together we can make something greater through the goodness of our relationship. And if we think about that, the resultant thing is a union. It could be a new idea, like together we had a great idea earlier. Do you remember that? Yeah, we had that great idea. Because you were talking, I was listening for once. So we got a good kind of idea popped out, right? So that's a kind of new creation almost, and it's made through this principle. Obviously, if you think of male and female, like husband and wife, that new creation can be something as amazing as a child, right?
That's right.
Comes. And that child is unique. It has something of the father and the mother, and something which is not from neither, actually.
That's right, yeah.
No, that is from the origin. This is God coming and kind of settling in that relationship. That's what the red dot means. It's like God is in there, right? And this is a natural process that should happen every time and everywhere. Right? But in the world of human relationships, it's damaged at the moment. Right? So keep that in mind. So the purpose here is development and to realize that original purpose. That's why life is so amazing. It keeps on going. There's a drive behind life, isn't there? Yeah? Do you have a problem with
Life goes on.
with weeds on your driveway or something like that? You know? These little things, they're coming through the cracks in the pavement, they're coming through the concrete. How do they do that? Right? Because they want to grow. Also, human society, despite our difficult situation as humankind, we're striving to make societies that work well and work better, and work amazingly well, actually, despite all the criticisms we can make. The legal system and the education system and everything, it works, because we have a common purpose to make it work, right?
Yeah.
And therefore it's realizing some kind of development to create something better. In this case, it's to create a better world, right? In a more peaceful and ideal world. So, good result is what comes out of this process, which is joy, which is peace, which is happiness, and the things that we were singing about earlier, right? So, pair system is living for others. We have these different pairs, mind and body, husband, wife, parent-child, government and people, human beings and the environment. These kind of paired relationships. And our own mind and body is, of course, very essential, as we'll see. And for peace in the world, we have to really live together and cooperate together. Let's go back to some of our religious traditions and look at some kind of quotations where it's talking about this idea of living for others.
Yes.
In other words, I don't exist as an individual. We are to be interdependent. We existing with a common purpose in relationship to others. Here in the New Testament, in Luke, whoever seeks to gain his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will preserve it, or for my sake, for some high purpose, will actually gain it. It's a very paradoxical saying, right, of Jesus, sometimes called hard sayings, right? But it's saying, behind that seeming contradiction is a profound truth. If you're just living to protect yourself, you're going to lose out in the end. So you have to be ready to sacrifice yourself, even give your life for someone. What a precious thing. That would never be forgotten, right, if that happens. Here in the Holy Quran, do not expect in giving any increase for yourself. That's like expectation is a kind of, thing of the mind. Again, don't go into that relationship thinking, I'm going to benefit through this. You may well benefit, of course, right? That's the kind of nice, aspect to it. But also, I think there's a kind of corollary to this, which is underlying a lot of kind of the problems in human interaction. That's the fear that by giving, I'm going to lose out. Have you come across that? Or even have a suspicion of that in yourself? By giving, by serving, by doing something, I'm going to,
It's my time.
be walked over, or I'm going to, end up exhausted, or of course we have to protect against those things, and that's another kind of expansion of the topic, but it's perfectly solvable. But there's a kind of underlying feeling that I have to protect myself and everything related to me because nobody else cares about that. Somebody has to do it, and it's down to me to do it. So there's a kind of reserve which actually is not helpful. And we need to let go of that. That's why somewhere these paradoxes in Holy Scriptures, they help us to get over this kind of tendency which is there. Here is our Om symbol again, of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed by those who desire no reward is the nature of goodness. Peter, right? Of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed by those who desire no reward is the nature of goodness. So this is a kind of unselfish, unconditional living for others, which is being talked about, and this is a common theme that I want to bring out, because we can talk about relationships and we can talk about love, but what are we really talking about when we use that word? Right? What qualities are we talking about? Here in Sikhism, what is that love which is based on greed? When there is greed, the love is false. Interesting. False. False love. So there's love. That's what we call false love, and there's also true love. I'll talk about those a little bit later as well.